Hi, I'm living in hope, and I know you are too. Today we're going to talk about the birth of religion and the nature of otherism. So this is part one. Obviously I'm planning on it being a little bit of a series here. So the question is, how did religion start? It's a commonly held understanding that religion came about as a means to explain the nature of nature and the world that we live in. Strange occurrences like tornadoes, shooting stars, meteor showers, volcano eruptions, and eclipses, just to name a few things that are often seen within a lifetime, but not so often that they don't necessarily scare the badookies out of people. So, how better for a tribe leader to explain these things than to attribute them to an unseen creator? In the beginning, it was the Great Mother who was the creator, the she from whose waters life came. I mean, this concept has been around since hominins noticed it was females who bore the offspring and not the males. Then, once the correlation between mating and offspring sparked in the hominin brain, along came the consort. But I'm getting ahead of myself, sorta. Again, great and mysterious, unknowable spirits were created, named, and born from those of the tribe, clan, or pack who were most observant about nature and all of its often terrifying wonders. Why would they do that? The long and short of it is, first off, fear. If these strange phenomena were able to be explained even by attributing them to something beyond our ability to see them other than their effects, so in short, if we personalize the elements and the controlling force of the elements, we make them relatable, then perhaps one day we can know them, or some of the wiser members of our group could. And then we can make offerings to appease them and ensure they won't cause us or ours any harm. Second off, it's control. If the leaders of a particular tribe or pack or group want to maintain not only social order, as in status, but also in the safety of all members, then they have to be able to exert authority, i.e., control, over their citizens. In order to further cement the ties to our tribal community, whether we're hunter-gatherers, just camping for a bit, or we're settling somewhere in order to farm the land and raise livestock along our offspring, this little group is us, we. Anyone who isn't we becomes them. We don't know them. They didn't travel with us. Where did they come from? Do they know the same God of the wind that we do? Or the same Great Mother that we do? What if they don't? Will they hurt us? Were they here first? Will they take our food, our females, our livestock? All these questions and uncertainties are ingrained in us from the very beginnings of our existence, even before we stood upright on the plains and started walking that way. Look at primate tribes. We were them, and we still are, just different. We're still animals, just different. So let's put a pin in that for a bit. Now, spiritual leaders, quote unquote, of old become what we know today as priests, rabbis, pastors, clergy of whatever stripe. Let's start with how that started. There are lots of different names for spiritual leaders: medicine man, shaman, advisor, guru, maharishi, master, mentor, mystic, spiritual guide, spiritual leader, swami, teacher, Wiccan, priest, or priestess, and on and on and on. Again, a widely known anthropological fact is or was that these spiritual leaders, as servants and advisors to the tribal leader, who usually was so by blood or birth, whatever you want to call them, they were simply those who had an aptitude for the study or intense observation of nature, plants, animals, and their behavior, effects, etc. In short, they were the first biologists or scientists in however rudimentary a fashion it might have been. Everything from the casting of bones and runes to the reading of entrails was a rudimentary attempt to classify and coordinate the causes of events of everyday life, as well as the strange, mysterious, and terrifying, rare, and possibly deadly natural events and disasters, or to predict them. I mean, did you ever stop and think about the old tale of Chicken Little screaming that the sky is falling? Did it ever dawn on you that that might have been around since we were living in caves and watching meteor showers or the like? Come on. If we didn't know better even now, we'd be freaking out. After all, look what happens when we got news about an asteroid passing within 1,000,000 miles of Earth. There are those who still freak out and think we're going to wind up going the way of the dinosaurs. Comet Hale-Bopp, anyone? Anyone remember that one? Yeah. Discovered in 1995, seen with the naked eye in 1996, and it won't be back for around another 2,500 years. So that's 2,500 years. And yet the cultist, as in cult leader Marshall Applewhite, got 39 people to let him convince them to either kill themselves or pretty much submit to being murdered along with their children. And this was in the oh-so-enlightened 20th century. Believe me, cults haven't gone anywhere. There are anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 cults in existence in America alone today. Why? I really don't know. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but the general consensus seems to be that these leaders, who are supposedly very charismatic, they're building their tribe. I'm sorry, I meant to say bilking their tribe, by offering something the aspiring members feel they're lacking in their lives. But this is a topic to get more deeply into another time. If you doubt what I'm saying about the power of so-called religion, think about this. In 2011, Rick Perry, then governor of Texas, had a pray-in for rain to end the drought in Texas. Now, I don't know how many people prayed for the drought to end. I'm betting it was an awful lot because a lot of folks lost everything during that time because of the fires. But it took 4 years before it ended. Now, if you want to, you can even go, you can take pay some attention to George Carlin, and say, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Well, okay. But what about the divine plan? And this is Carlin's argument. What about the divine plan? If God has a divine plan, why are you going to bother praying to God and ask him to change his divine plan just for you? Doesn't it kind of go against the divine plan? Anyway, so that drought must have been a divine plan thing, because it lasted for 4 more years. What about other severe weather? How many so-called religious leaders will spout out that God must be angry with the whatever sinful behavior is the flavor of the day to their cause, that causes X type of weather to happen? We live in the 21st century. We have access to information, both factual and fictional, both beneficial and malicious. The internet, the very phenomenon responsible for this literal vast repository of information, both useful and not, did not exist as we know it 30 years ago. In 1993, there were 130 websites in existence. 130, not 130,000, not 130 million, 130. Period. And still, look at how the far side of religious adherents still point the finger at God being angry with us little pissants for not rooting loud enough for the home team, or whatever. That superstition is still in us, and the only way to get out from under its grip is with knowledge and facts, verifiable and evidentiary facts. Just so you know, anything termed alternative facts, those are lies. Period. The people who actually know facts have always been vilified by those in power because those in power fear the loss of their power over the masses. Why was literacy reserved for royalty and the priests? Because they knew that if the masses were to gain knowledge, that they would lose their power to control them. Galileo and Copernicus were both persecuted by the church for presenting observable, knowable, verifiable facts. Why? Because the church couldn't allow itself to be seen as wrong. Even today, people with knowledge and facts are suffering a resurgence in vilification. They're suffering threats against their lives, their home, their families, their children. And they're threatened with jail, fines, death penalties, just because some people in the tribe don't like the facts that they're being told. They think that they can just will the nature of a thing to change so they won't have to. so they won't have to change their minds, their beliefs, their routine, their diet, or even so much as the channel. They don't want to know, so they put their heads in the sand and attack anyone who tries to give them irrefutable facts like rabid, feral beasts. And they never stop to think what they would do if someone did the same thing to them or their family for simply relating factual, provable data. It's a mad, as in insane, animal reaction, very like the animal in a trap that may chew off its own paw to escape and most likely die of infection or blood loss as a result. And again, while we are undoubtedly animals, we have a different kind of thought process most others don't. We have reason and the capacity for critical thought, which is why the powers that be don't want children to be taught how to think critically. Though very few exercise either reason or critical thought anymore. Instead, many have fallen under the thrall of these supposedly charismatic charlatans who know how to stoke the fires of rage bias into a frenzy, blind, murderous hatred. Robert Ardrey said in reference to our origins, "We are born of risen apes, not fallen angels." Why are we so often willing to turn on someone of an other tribe in the name of politics or religion or some other ideology instead of overcoming our differences to learn about our similarities? There was a time not so long ago that by and large, at least here in America, the majority of us actually did that. Unlike so many other animal species, like the scorpion or the frog of the famous fable, we can overcome our nature. If we weren't capable of overcoming our fears, our insecurities, and our ignorance to learn from one another, we wouldn't have so many of the wonderful things we do today, like chocolate. Then where would we be? Seriously, can you imagine life without chocolate? I can't. Anyway, I'll be back another time with a little bit of a continuation on this, some of the history of how religion became what it was. If you go back in time to early Egypt, I'm not even going to take us back into Mesopotamia, into Ur and Akkad and Babylon. I'm going to take us to Egypt and the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. So she was a female pharaoh that the priests tried to erase from history. Check it out. It's spelled just like it sounds. If you want to Google it, Hatshepsut, feel free. Teach yourself something. And as you do, let the hope grow. Because it's all we've got. Talk to you soon. Thanks again. And don't forget to go ahead and subscribe and like, please. And share, if you will. I'm going to start a new little series of thoughts for the day, little positive nuggets of, goodwill to get your days going and hopefully remind us that the sun does shine, that people can be good, that it's our nature also to want to help one another, particularly once we remember that we are all of the same human tribe. Keep hoping.